Thank you so much for having me. I mean, I'm really excited to being on your show and to spend some time talking about the world of sports. You know, at 76 Capital, we love sports, obviously, but we also look at the world and we see what's happening in the sports industry today. And what we see is we like to call it the grand reawakening of sports. And you think about what people want to do. I say people want to do three things. They want to play sports or work out. Number two, they want one of their kids to be a great, great player. They'll do anything to make them the next LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Serena Williams. They'll spend tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes a year for that. And then the third thing, people just want to watch sports. And now people want to be able to bet on sports. And it's really interesting. So you think about the three things that pretty much everyone wants to do. And so, a couple of years ago, we said, you know what, we're going to only invest in the industry, which we think is going to grow the fastest and is something that everyone has an incredible amount of interest in. So we went solely into the sports industry about 4 years ago to only invest in sports tech companies, into eSports companies, and sports betting companies. And we believe that there are entrepreneurs out there, and we certainly have invested in a number of them, well over a dozen of them that are truly transforming and innovating and changing the overall sports world. And there's so many things that are happening now. As I said, the world of sports tech, the things that you can do with technology in sports, the analytics, the data, all that is incredible. And that also, filters itself into the world of eSports. We'll talk about this, I'm sure, a little bit about the world of competitive video gaming, where you can go to college on a scholarship. There's over 200 schools that will give you a scholarship to play video games, just like you would play football or basketball or field hockey at a university. And then the world of sports betting. And we just had the second year anniversary of the repeal of PASPA, which all started in the state of New Jersey. And when that law was repealed by the Supreme Court, what happened there was now all of a sudden sports betting was able to be happen legally outside of the state of Nevada. And that was a big, big deal. So now you're at 22 states that have passed laws, 24 if you actually add in the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. So you have 24, states and jurisdictions that can have sports betting. 18 are live, even in a world right now where you don't have sports betting. You don't have a lot of live sports. We've got golf, we have NASCAR now, we have a couple things here and there, but it's pretty amazing to see what's going on in this world. And we're super excited, and what we're all about at 76 Capital is to invest in the entrepreneurs that are passionate about the sports industry, that want to do the next thing, and we want to get behind them and help them be successful.
Well, thanks for that. And obviously so much to cover now. So you've invested in, I guess, almost 12 companies. Tell us first about, well, there's one other thing you mentioned, I think, or you may not have mentioned, but it was in your bio about athletes something, that you work with athletes. So you do a couple of things. So why don't you talk about that as well?
Well, one of the things that we think is really important in the sports industry is that, one of the things I noticed was getting involved in this industry and looking around the room and seeing executives of teams, of leagues, of technology companies, but at all these big conferences and all the roundtables and all the conference calls, I'm like, where are the athletes? I'm looking around. I'm like, well, this is sports, right? There's actually the experts. The experts are not in the room. It's like you're going to have like a brain surgery and you got like regular doctors all around, and you have lay people going, yeah, you just cut it open and some stuff's in there. I read a book about it. But like, who's the expert that can actually, I'll reach back, right, and grab this baseball and put their hands on this ball, which has more technology in it than most computers back in the day, but it feels like a regular ball. It weighs the same. And I could just literally throw this ball and be able to, see the velocity of, it'll show up on my phone, the velocity, the spin rate, where my arm was, the positioning of my arm, just by throwing this ball. But here's the thing, if this ball feels like a little league plastic, Mattel crappy ball or something, right? Then it's not going to be used by the major leaguers. It's not going to be used by the top colleges and universities. It's not going to be used by, all the amazing travel teams all around the country that use this stuff. So you need to have the experts. And that's why we have something called our Athlete Venture Group, which enables us to bring athletes to the table. They have an opportunity to invest with us. They have an opportunity to learn. They have an opportunity to get involved in businesses that they know something about. We don't put 7-foot centers in lab coats and go try to figure out something in the biotech industry. That's not for us. There are guys that do that stuff, but we believe we want to keep our athletes in their lanes. And it's really been incredible because not only just, some of the physical sports, a lot of these athletes are also very much interested in the world of eSports, and they're big time gamers. And they can, not only do they know the game, know how to play the game, and are incredible at some of these games, but they also help the company and help the brand. And we're able to then use the social capital that these athletes have to help move our companies forward.
Well, let's talk about eSports. What we've seen, just from everything I could see, it is an explosion of interest, activity, engagement, and even more so with the pandemic. So give us sort of a 5-year perspective, where we've come and where we're going.
Yeah, we're super excited about the world of esports, and we believe, esports athletes are just like physical athletes. I mean, they have an incredible skill. They're able to, whether it's playing regular sports games or other types of games, or League of Legends or Overwatch or any of those games, you need to have incredible skill to be able to play at the highest of levels. So there are professional leagues out there right now that pay these players to play in those leagues and play those games, pay them millions of dollars. You also have a collegiate level, where, as I said earlier, you have over 200 colleges and universities that are offering scholarships to young people to come into their college and play on their team. So one of the number one colleges in the United States, I don't know if you know this one, Jim, you know what it is?
No.
I call it the Alabama of esports, right, is Harrisburg University.
What?
Harrisburg University has one sport that they play there, and it's esports. And their teams are ranked at won the national championship and ranked at the top of esports not only in the US, but all over the world. I mean, you walk down the streets in South Korea, you will see people wearing HU jerseys. They're not going to be wearing Alabama, Clemson, Penn State. No, they want to see their HU is the coolest thing, because in South Korea, esports is huge there, right? And they're the school. So it's really fascinating to see what's happening. But then at the same time, where are the little leagues of esports? Where are the high school leagues? Where, if you just want to go play with your friends, where's a place where, if you want to play Overwatch, so the game Overwatch is a 6-on-6 game. So you need 12 computers to play against each other. And yes, you can play online, and we're doing a lot of that online right now. But one of our companies, called Nerd Street Gamers, has a very robust online tournament business, but they also are building physical locations all across the country to enable people to play. And so we do that. That's a company called Nerd Street, as I was saying earlier. We're investors in that company with Comcast, as well as Five Below. Five Below, the kids retailer, we're putting 100 esports facilities all across the country right next door to the Five Below stores, where you'll be able to just walk in and play games, because the customer at Five Below is typically someone in their teens, and a lot of teens like gaming. So we're going to be doing a lot of interesting things together with them.
Wow, that's really interesting. And I had never even heard of Harrisburg University, and I'm sort of familiar with Pennsylvania too, which I feel really dumb right now. But that's great that at least the mecca of esports is in Pennsylvania. That's a really great thing that Pennsylvania can be proud of.
It really is. It's Harrisburg University, Nerd Street Gamers, Comcast. I mean, Tucker Roberts, what he's doing. Tucker Roberts is Brian Roberts' son. Brian Roberts is the CEO of Comcast. They own NBC, Universal, right? I mean, Tucker is a huge esports guy. He's led the whole initiative across Comcast. He sits on the board with us at Nerd Street Gamers. And then another, Pennsylvania company, Nerd Street Gamers, is also, a partner of ours in this. So there's a lot of really exciting things happening in Pennsylvania around esports.
That's great. And now you mentioned online betting before, right?
Yes.
And obviously now we can be proud that New Jersey was one of the, very progressive and an innovator in being the first to sort of open up. So New Jersey, Pennsylvania, this is a really great sort of hotspot for digital sports, sports tech, and online betting. So talk to us, bring us up to date on online betting. A lot has gone on.
Yeah, I mean, the world of sports betting, again, it was illegal to bet on sports outside of the state of Nevada in the United States up until May 14th of 2018. So, I mean, the amount of, and the velocity of progress and innovation and movement in that industry within the last 2 years is absolutely incredible. As I said, 22 states have passed laws, 24 if you add the states and jurisdictions to that, District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. I mean, this thing is moving, right? And from a revenue perspective, the state of New Jersey and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania almost surpassed the amount of betting and wagers that were being done in Nevada. So you have about $5 billion in Nevada, a little under $5 billion in both New Jersey and Pennsylvania in 2019. And this was just going and then we have the pandemic now, which obviously slowed a lot of things down. But this year was going to continue to grow, and it possibly could if sports come back, in the way that they're supposed to come back. I mean, we may eclipse those numbers because, again, access is another thing. So there's so much opportunity. So in the state of Nevada, you could bet on your phone, but you could also, most people were going into the casinos themselves and sports books to bet. It was a little more complicated because you actually have to load your phone with cash at a physical location in Nevada. But in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, they just enable you to download the app on your phone. You download the app and you're able to put the money right on your phone and start betting on games.
Wow, that's amazing. That really is amazing how that industry has just taken off. And we were talking earlier about betting and Barstool, and there's a lot of other businesses that are sort of in this space that have just sort of risen in the past few years. So any sort of standouts in general from, you mentioned some of the ones you're invested in, but anything that's really exciting for us to know about that's happening sort of maybe, coming up and we're not aware of it in the news?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, when we look at the sports betting industry, we look at it from a broad perspective. So you have the data collection side of things where you're going to collect all this data. So just like on Wall Street, if you have more data, you have more information, the better that you can do as a bettor, right? And so you have this opportunity to collect more data than ever on the fields of games. So using sensors and cameras and all of these kind of next generation things that are happening on the fields of professional sports, college sports, and even all the way down on the amateur side, which you really aren't betting on that, but it's pretty incredible to see what's happening there. So you have all this data collection, but you also have this world of data analytics, where you're then taking that information and making sense of it all. And some of the top data analytics companies in the country in the sports betting industry, one of which is called Swish Analytics, which is one of our portfolio companies, which we work with, and they are the official data provider for Major League Baseball. Then you have the media side of things. So one of our companies called VSiN. VSiN is VSIN. It's the sports betting network that was started by Brent Musburger, the legendary broadcaster. We were the first institutional investor in the company and really have helped them grow, where this sports betting network, you can watch this. If you have Comcast, you have an X1 box, you can watch it on just look for where Netflix is and then run it right underneath that. You can see VSiN. You can go on VSiN.com. You can go to Sirius XM channel 204. Many of the sports nets all across the country, whether it's Madison Square Garden Network, whether it's Nesson in New England, whether it's the Marquee Network in Chicago, all of our shows are on these networks for you to watch. And what this sports betting network is like, it's like the CNBC of sports betting. It's just like that. So instead of just tracking the stocks, you're tracking the lines. You're seeing where the line originated, and who originated, and talk to the line originators, talk to those experts. And you're able to hear what they're and why they set the line at 7.5. Why the Eagles Giants game? The Eagles are favored by 6.5. Why not 5.5? Why not 8? What's the thinking? And then also see the movement of the lines over time. And that's really interesting. And we have a show called The Green Zone, which is very similar to the Red Zone, which Scott Hansen runs on the NFL Network. And during games, you can watch the lines moving. And you can place bets in the middle of all that. And that's what's so fascinating, what's happening within that industry. And then you have the integrity side of it. So a lot of those companies were doing things on the offensive side, but in a way, this US Integrity, which is another one of our companies, were doing things around on a little bit of a defensive perspective and making sure that everything's on the up and up, making sure there's true integrity in these games and that there's no funny business, right? As well as, again, providing the information about sports betting to everyone from the teams, the leagues, and just so they know what's happening. Many of the SEC, the Pac-12, many of these conferences, they and even the big sports leagues they're just not well versed yet in the world of sports betting. Right. They are now. And many of them use a lot of our tools. So we're doing some pretty cool things. We've got a number of other companies that will be announcing within this world. And I'll tell you, it's really exciting. It's a very, very big growth market. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, talks about this as being a potential of a $500 billion industry. Remember, just 2 years ago, it was a $5 billion industry solely in the state of Nevada. And it's moving very, very quickly.
That is stunning. 500 billion. So you're an investor, right? A seasoned investor with a lot of experience. What are you seeing in the market as far as investment trends? Are things sort of slowed down? Are they stopped? What's going on as far as you can see?
Well, entrepreneurs don't sleep. Innovators don't just look outside and see there's a pandemic, or they just keep thinking. They're dreamers. They're the people that are doing the next thing. So to being an entrepreneur, you're always trying to push things forward and make something happen. So we are seeing, quite frankly, almost more opportunities than ever across all the areas that we look to invest in the sports industry. We are certainly, one of the things, and this will be on one of the things that I recommend to everybody right now, and one of your thing that you asked we'll talk about is kind of what do I recommend, but I recommend to all the entrepreneurs, to everyone, is to continue to build your network, and this is a great time to do that. So I think that we're starting to see a lot of opportunity. We're continuing to see a lot of opportunity. We also believe that this is also a very unique time where you can actually start to build the technology side of your business and really, shore up some things, and also think about and work on some areas that you may not have had time, as a lot of us are just moving so fast and flying around and running all over the country. This is a great time to focus on those kinds of things. And that's what we're seeing from these entrepreneurs all across the country in the sports world.
Well, that's really good to hear. You hear gloom and doom a lot, but clearly I'm seeing it as well. A lot of energy, a lot of innovation, and it's happening. There was a slight pause, but I think now people are just doubling down and looking for ways to innovate and create new businesses and services. And I'm really encouraged to hear your perspective. So now we're going to bring on Ian in a sec. I just wanted to ask you one more thing. Advice for entrepreneurs. What do you recommend?
Well, I highly recommend, and I think during this time is even a better time than ever, to go out and make as many connections as possible and try to turn those connections into relationships. This whole idea of networking, yes, I'm a huge believer, and I love to be out and around and having my right pocket filled with business cards and handing out as many business cards as possible and collecting as many as possible and putting in my left pocket. That's, as many people know, that's my goal every day, is to empty my right pocket and fill up my left. But right now you can't do that in a physical sense. But what you can do is use all the digital tools and network through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through Twitter, through Instagram, through pretty much everything out there. If you're an eSports person, get on Discord, start doing more and more of that. Reach out to people, talk to people, start to develop relationships, because relationships are everything in business. Whether it's the sports business or anything else, if you can develop relationships and you can not only just collect people's information, but when you make that contact, think about who that person is. Think about if there's a way to actually help that person. Think if you can actually do something for them, even if they're a billionaire, even if they're the most powerful person in the world. If you could do something for them, they'll remember that.
Yeah.
And then you'll have this opportunity to actually help others. And I think that's something that is really important today, that you can go do. And whether we're in the middle of COVID-19 or not, you can network, you can meet more people, you can build that network. And most importantly, I think what we're all about and why we do things like this, look, we're all trying to help others and try to make this world a better place. And that's what it's all about, whether it's in the sports industry or in any other industry. We are here to help others, and that's what it's all about.
That makes so much sense, Wayne. Clearly, relationships are everything. I agree 100%. And clearly, when you can offer to help others, that goes a long way. And when we're able to meet in real life, we will reconnect. But right now, it's a great time to connect digitally and just be thoughtful about it. And there's a lot of, obviously, courses or short talks on how to do this in an effective way. But it's never too late to start. I think you agree with that, and I think that's really important. Okay, so now we're going to take questions. So keep submitting your questions. But before we do that, we're going to introduce Ian Goldberg, who just came online here. Ian is an entrepreneur dealing in sports tech, has a neat platform, and I've known him for several years, and he's doing some really interesting stuff. And I want to hear him really describe his journey, and then we'll talk about what he's seeing, and then we'll get to your questions. So Ian, welcome.
Great to be with both of you, Jim and Wayne. Thanks, guys. So happy to make a little introduction. Actually, I think Wayne did a pretty good job of introducing me and many entrepreneurs. I mean, this is a really interesting, dynamic, and exciting time for many entrepreneurs, including myself. So iSport 360 is a virtual youth sports platform. I conceptualized this company because I felt like parents and coaches and kids could really do a better job of working together to make sure that every kid has success. And our platform takes a lot of inspiration from the world of education. And it was really built to be a tool that complements practices and games, a tool where coaches can share feedback after a game, conduct a player evaluation, and help support the training process. Little did we know that the COVID crisis was going to come along and bring a suspension to youth sports. And like you were just saying, at first, we thought it was going to be all doom and gloom. I mean, we were in the midst of a $3 million raise. That certainly is being postponed. But what started to happen was that coaches started to sign up for virtual youth sports platforms faster than ever before. So many coaches are using Zoom to do virtual training practices with their kids, but they still need something to complement that. They still need a way to share training videos with their team, share practice assignments with their team, have a virtual locker room where the teammates can communicate, stay connected, stay active. And so we were actually recognized just 2 weeks ago by the Washington Post for the way our platform is being used during this crisis. So we are really trying to do what we can to support the community, with what's going on right now.
And tell us, Ian, I think that's really great that you got that coverage in the Post. Tell us more about, how you started and where you've come and where you're going.
Absolutely. So like many people, this company was launched because I saw a need in my own life and in my own community. When I started coaching my daughters in soccer and basketball, I just saw a real breakdown in communication between me as the coach and the parents on the team. And the funny thing is, most of them are friends from the neighborhood. I know them socially, but once you start coaching their child, the dynamic of the relationship changes and becomes a little more complex. And like I said, I looked at the world of education where teachers, parents, and kids work together to make sure every kid has success. And there's so many best practices we could be using in the world of education. So things like setting goals for the players, which is something that our platform does. Encouraging ongoing feedback from the coach to let the child know how they're doing, but also to let the parent know how the child's doing. So I saw this opportunity to create a solution. And as I talked to more and more people, and this is going back 3 years, I didn't realize that youth sports is an industry now. It's a $19 billion industry. And the challenges I was seeing in communication and development of these players was something that was really prevalent across our country and even, across to Europe, to Asia, to Australia. So that's why I pursued the opportunity.
Great. And Ian, what was your background before you did that?
I came from the world of digital media and the early days of the .com and e-commerce era of the 1990s. So, I was very comfortable being around technology. I don't code, and that's the one thing that I feel bad about. I could have moved this thing along a lot faster. But I'm very comfortable with understanding the code, understanding how to create requirements for a product, test a product, and certainly to do the digital marketing and bring it out to the world.
Great. And what are you seeing in the world of sports tech, not only in your own business, but in peripheral businesses and nationwide?
So it's absolutely a very exciting time for sports tech across, youth sports, across wearable devices, certainly in the professional and college world. I think we are faced with tremendous uncertainty right now for any sports tech company that's selling into the college and professional space. I mean, this is just unprecedented. That billionaire team owners are worried about the future of their business. So I think it's a little hard to comment on that right now. But to comment on sports tech for youth sports, I see a lot of blue sky at the end of this crisis. I actually just wrote an article about a week ago about this topic because youth sports became such an industry that we forgot it's really just supposed to be an activity for kids to have fun. And for the first time in many years, we're seeing parents out in the yard kicking the soccer ball around with their kids. I mean, that used to be reserved for like a coach or a trainer to do with their kids. We see parents working out with their kids. They're doing yoga, they're doing speed and agility, they're taking bike rides. We didn't even have time for this 2 months ago. We were so overscheduled with youth sports. So I think there's a lot of good things happening in the youth sports space right now. And we should see some real cultural changes in the whole youth sports industry.
That's really great to hear. I've seen it with my own kids. We do more, and it's just great to take a pause if possible and sort of be re-engaged even more so. I'd like to ask people to keep submitting your questions. Let me ask you this, Ian, and Wayne actually as well. Is there a point where there's too much technology in sports where it sort of detracts or gets in the way of all the sports and great pastimes?
Yeah, well, I think if I may, Wayne, I think in the youth sports space, it's a challenge right now. Just like in many industries, there is app fatigue. There are so many new technologies being thrown at the people that run sports programs, parents of young athletes. But the way we've been trying to help that situation is to focus more on the needs of the kids, because our kids, and for our platform, it's really kids 7 to 15 years old, they want to use their devices with every single activity they do. They want to be socially interactive with their devices after their games, their practices. So the funny thing is about the last 8 weeks in this lockdown is that kids had no problem using more technology to enhance their human interactions. For us, it's been really strange. For adults, it's been really strange, but for kids, it's not. So I think technology that embraces the fact that kids want to use their devices, I think will be strong. And that's where we've been focusing.
How about you, Wayne?
Yeah, Ian's right on. I think, talk about how, in one of our companies, and I showed you this earlier, this company called Diamond Kinetics, right? I mean, we have a whole play at home campaign going on right now, which we're working with USA Baseball and Perfect Game and Easton and Dick's and all the big players in and around the world of sports and baseball, right? I mean, this idea that you can actually throw this ball at home, and then all the information, as we said, the velocity, the spin rate, your arm position, all that stuff shows up on your phone immediately, right? Immediately you'll get that information. We also have a sensor you can put in a bat, and you're able to take swings. And we have this whole really fun game. We actually launched 5 games this week where you can hit, see how long it takes you to hit it a mile, see how many, how far you can hit the ball. And just by having a sensor in your bat, all that information shows up on your phone, your iPad, your computer. It's incredible. It's a way to engage the next generation of kids. It's one of the things that we're doing with a number of MLB teams. They're going to be able to have camp at home this year. We're also doing it with colleges as well. So they're using our technology to be able to have camps, virtual camps, but using the physical ball or sensor in your bat to do those kind of things. We're also doing that from a broadcasting perspective. So one of our companies, play-by-play sports broadcasting camps, we're doing virtual camps. So instead of having to go to UCLA or Villanova or Boston or Dallas or anywhere in the country where we've had these camps typically, you're able to now do that at home on your computer, have that same experience, be able to be with the other 10 to 18-year-olds that you're interested in, and have a great experience, and also learn how to be a sports broadcaster at our play-by-play camps. It's really exciting what's possible right now, and the use of technology and the interest of technology and the way that we're able to do this. Look, all of our kids do this better than us, right? They're in the middle of my daughter's taking classes online in college. My son's taking classes in high school online, right? And they're used to this technology. They're used to this type of interaction. They're used to playing. They play Madden with their friends. They play Fortnite with their friends. They play Overwatch with their friends. I mean, they're used to this kind of stuff. So to bring it to the athletic side of their world, it's normal.
Wow, that's really. I'm glad you explained some of those options with online. All the capabilities to really engage kids over the summer. That really looks fascinating. Now,
we're also doing eSports camps. We're doing eSports camps as well. I mean, game-specific camps. We're doing, we're doing that with Nerd Street Gamers, right? I mean, I saw someone ask what was what company was it, or what's the website? nerdstreetgamers.com or nsg.gg, right? I mean, like, these are you can just go on. If your 12-year-old, 16-year-old wants to take a week of Fortnite, right? Learn about how to play the game, how the game was made, the business of esports, all of that in 1 week. That stuff is all possible right now.
That's really great. Now, what about the improvement of kids' skills with technology? So I'm just looking back to when I was a kid. We never had, and we, all three of us, never had this technology. Can you make any guesstimates on, or would we have been 10% better, or is there any sort of data out there that sort of projects how much stronger an athlete we would be by leveraging technology? Or is that, maybe it's too early to ask, but I can't help but think of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to jump in on that. I mean, look, I think that the opportunity, I mean, think about it. We had what VCR, you know, we had a VCR, you had a tape, you'd watch a tape to be able to, you know, like, okay, watch Michael Jordan and you know, run it back, like watch that move that he just made. But now your kid can go on to YouTube and watch all the great coaches out there and learn from, or go take a master class from Steph Curry, and you could learn what are the drills, right? What kinds of drills should you do? You know, getting that elbow under your shot, right? Like how do you make sure it's in the right spot, right? There are tons of videos. All you have to do, I mean, look, Google tells you anything, right? So you type anything into Google, it gives you the answer. So I think it all really is incredibly helpful. It's one of the things that's enabling, I think, and I think what Ian talked about with coaches as well. I mean, you can go with that. I mean, go with this. I mean, it's amazing what's possible.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's a little bit of like nature versus nurture. You know, even if you train for 10,000 hours, will you ever get to that, you know, that elite level? But without a doubt, our kids have so many more tools available to them. There's really no excuse. I mean, hop on YouTube. It's the biggest library of training videos in the world. So that helps. But just the amazing technology, like your company, Wayne, with the technology in the baseball. I mean, kids are learning at a very early age a lot about their capabilities. So it's very impressive.
So before we get to questions from our audience, Ian, why don't you share with us just one thing?
Happy to do that. So I think right now in the middle of this crisis, it is extremely important for entrepreneurs to navigate a safe course to success. And I think one of the most important ways to do that is to surround yourself with incredible advisors. I mean, we had a tough decision to make a few weeks ago when we postponed our round of investment. But at the same time, I went to my investors and I said, I'm considering giving the iSport 360 platform to every team and coach that is struggling this season to keep their teams connected. And we decided together that that's what we were going to do. So we sacrificed all of our revenue this spring to make sure that we're helping our community, we're helping our customers, the teams, the organizations. So I think having a strong advisory board is so important for entrepreneurs. You cannot make those tough decisions alone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, Ian. The strength of your advisors and your board are even more critical in times like these. And kudos to you and your team for doing that thoughtful, and generous approach to the community, which will come back and benefit you in the future, I'm certain.
Thanks.
So let's, and I'm sure, Wayne, while we get to questions, anything you want to comment on about, but as an investor, the importance of teams and boards?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have, and I agree with what Ian was saying. I mean, to have, it goes back to what I was saying about networking and building relationships. I mean, look, you can't know everything, no matter how smart you are, no matter how amazing you are. You can't know everything, and also having advisors and having people around you, they may see things from a different angle. Like, you're so into it, right? We're so into sports, we're so into this industry, and someone may just say, like, well, in the healthcare world, we looked at it like this, and you ever thought about this or look at it like that? I mean, like, you just never know, right? So I think it's so important to always invite feedback, invite other people with different types of ideas and thoughts around the table, because you can learn a lot. And and as I was saying, like, that's why being in sports, why we have athletes around. Like, you got to ask the athletes. If you have an opportunity to talk to an NBA Hall of Famer, or if you're involved in baseball, having someone who's enshrined in Cooperstown, or you want to be able to have the right kinds of people. Like our basketball company, Shot Tracker. we were so fortunate, and Ian was there, at our conference in November when I got this opportunity to interview David Stern, and it was one of his last public interviews. And David was not only, he was a co-investor with us in one of our portfolio companies called Shot Tracker. He was able to help us bring Magic Johnson onto that as an investor in that company. And having David and Magic and all the other experts around, because, he was the king. We miss him. I can't, we talked about him, we talk about him like almost every day now, but like to have someone like that around the company and help the company grow when you have to deal with Nike and Adidas and Wilson and all the major colleges and all, it's really tough. But if you have someone who has those relationships, who has your back, who can really help you, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, good points there. So we have a question here from Bill about Comcast eSports investments in Philly, such as the Fusion Center. Can you comment on that at all, Wayne?
Sure. So, as I mentioned earlier, Tucker Roberts, as well as Joe Marsh, really run all of that over at Comcast. Joe is now the CEO of T1. T1 is their gaming team that Comcast owns. They are also Comcast Spectacor. They're the ones who are going to be building this new Fusion Arena, which is going to be next door to the Xfinity Live, next to Wells Fargo Center, which will be really special. And they're also investors with us in our esports company, Nerd Street Gamers, and Tucker sits on the board with me on that company. And they're an incredible partner to have, and they're making moves. They're making big moves in the esports industry.
Got it. Hurry asks about if you guys mainly rely on advisors who are investors and have a vested interest in your product or service.
So for us, most of our investors are advisors and vice versa. We've been really fortunate enough to bring some people from the sports and technology world. So, the three most trusted advisors for me are Howie Roseman, who's the GM of the Philadelphia Eagles, Marcus Colston, former New Orleans Saints football player, and a very sharp businessman. And also Jay Fulcher, who's the CEO of Zenefits out in San Francisco. Between the three of them, I get a really kind of, diverse perspectives and ideas. But yeah, we have a very strong advisory board, most of whom are investors as well.
Okay, Wayne?
Yeah, I think we, as I said before, we definitely rely on advisors, and we love to have them with skin in the game if possible. Most of the time we require that because I think it does really focus your attention. You kind of spend your time where your money is. So that's something that we believe in, and it's definitely helpful.
All right, thanks. Now, Bill mentions he has a couple of links. He has a millennial son who is in sports management, who's doing a sports management degree. And he's also a competitive baseball athlete for 12 years. So bravo, Bill. Now the question is, how will sports tech impact traditional professional organizations like the owners of major league teams on the business side versus athlete performance?
Happy to take it. Look, the thing is, and it's a perfect example of how sports technology and what's happening within the world of sports betting is something that we focus on one of our investments called US Integrity. And US Integrity enables you as a sports executive, whether you're at a college, a university, a professional team, or even a sports league, to have a dashboard, almost like a Bloomberg terminal on your computer, to see what's happening. Where are the bets coming in on your team, on your games, on your conference, your league, right? You can see what's happening. You can see, from whether it's DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever the sports book is, William Hill, you can now be able to see where the lines are moving, where the action's coming from. Maybe you have a lot of bets. If you're the New York Giants and there's a lot of bets coming in on your game in Mississippi, well, what's that all about? Is something wrong or something right? Maybe something's right. Maybe you have a fan base in Mississippi that you've never known about, and your marketing team has never marketed in that area. But that's maybe an area that you're able. So there's a lot of very interesting data and technology that you can use as an executive today. And one of the things that we've done to enable to teach and educate during this time, we partnered with, when I say we, US Integrity partnered with Ohio University. Ohio University is one of the top sports management universities in the country, and we've created a sports betting curriculum. And now you can learn as a sports betting executive. If you go to sportsgamblingeducation.com, and at sportsgamblingeducation.com, you can take a course and become certified in sports betting. So you can actually truly understand this industry from an executive perspective and what you need to know. One of the craziest things about sports betting is that if you were a sports executive 2 years ago and a few days, you were not allowed to walk into casinos. You were not allowed to go to sports books. You weren't allowed to place bets on your games. Even if you went to Nevada, where it is legal, weren't allowed to do that. The leagues wouldn't let you do that. Your teams, there are rules against that. Now it's this giant industry, and they want to be involved. And so then what are you doing? You're putting billboards up, MGM, bet Fred, bet this, bet that, bet 365, and you're putting up all these, and all of a sudden this, a couple years ago was illegal. You wouldn't even have these things. You weren't even allowed to even mention these words, these names. But now they're paying you millions of dollars. But what else can you do with them? And that's some of the really interesting things that I think that if you, with a deeper education and with the opportunity of really, so if you go to like sportsgamblingeducation.com and you take this course by the experts, guys like Matt Holt, Sarah Slane, she's one of the top, sports betting experts in the country, and you can learn from them and learn what you could do to actually make you a better sports executive.
Great. Here's a question from Patrick. It seems that both Ian and Wayne focus on kids programs, eSports with Wayne, Ian with sports education with kids as well. Do either of you see a future in adult or teen sports technology with sports like golf or tennis that are beginning to grow again with the baby boomer retirement sector?
So the funny thing for us is that individual sports are really not that attractive just because it doesn't help our business grow that much. When we bring a new soccer team onto our platform and there's 18 kids and there's 30 parents and a bunch of coaches, that's like a beautiful customer for us. If we have a golf coach, somewhere with that maybe trains a handful of kids or boomers for that matter, I mean, that's not really part of our model, but I don't know, there could be some opportunity there. I would say I would hand off to Wayne with the thought that certainly sports tech in golf has been helpful in, helping people learn to perfect their swing. So I'll hand that one to you, Wayne.
Yeah, I mean, look, through the use of sensors and cameras, I mean, whether it's for baseball, for golf, for football, for basketball, for hockey, I mean, it's all, whether you're young, old, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and you can learn so much. I learned so much. And I try to think about my glory days on the basketball court, and I'm like, okay, and as I'm working out with my 16-year-old son, I mean, I love it. I love when he, we watch together. And the other thing is that, the footwork, the moves, I mean, again, you could really slow things down and watch frame by frame now. Like, how does, look at Harden, right? From the Houston Rockets, right? Is that a walk or not? I think it's a walk. But anyway, but if you actually watch the footwork, and you can do that by using the video, using the technology, and being able to not only and emulate, right? And how should you catch a pass? Where should your feet be? Where should your hands be? There's so much that you can do. And these were only things, as Ian was saying earlier, these were only things that your coach could tell you in the past. And now it's available for everybody, and it's amazing. It's amazing what's out there, and I think that it's what that's going to do. It's going to make sports better for everybody. When you go out there and you're hacking away on the weekends playing golf, I'm not saying any of you. I don't even play anymore. It just takes too long. I can't deal with it. But like, you think about it, like you could learn so much more. But I'll tell you the one other thing, which technology doesn't help. You still have to practice, right? You still got to go out there and work hard. And that's the one thing, whether it's tech or anything else, you got to work hard. Ian will tell you that from an entrepreneur perspective. We'll tell you from a venture capital perspective. You got to work hard. You got to be out there. You got to do your thing. You're going to get punched in the face. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to have disastrous days. You're going to have some of the greatest days in the world being an entrepreneur. But I'll tell you, there's nothing better than being in the sports industry and working with people that are trying to move the industry forward.
Good. That's really, really great guidance there, Wayne. One last question. How do you folks choose advisors?
So I think choosing advisors is such an important part of the early process, and there's so much value that you can bring from having great advisors. So number one, you get their great perspective. Number two, in some cases, you get some press value out of having a Super Bowl champion athlete on your advisory board. So I think it's really important to aim extremely high. When I started my company, I reached out to the biggest names in sports and technology that I possibly could. I was not afraid to do that. I got rejected a load of times. Some of those, like Hall of Fame athletes, I still keep in touch with, even though they're not on my advisory board. But I would say aim high, it will pay off, even if 1 out of every 20 of the people that you reach out to, actually becomes an advisor or even engages in the conversation. So it's a process, it's an art, but I would say have courage and go for the best you can find.
Thanks for that, Ian. How about you, Wayne? What do you recommend to your portfolio companies?
Well, I think it has to do with your, by selecting advisors, to making sure that they have a similar philosophy that you have, right? I mean, we always talk about looking to invest in passionate entrepreneurs that are smart, that are nice, and that really want to change the world and do big things. And if that's what you're all about as a company, make sure that the people that get involved with you have very similar traits and qualities.
Great, thank you. All right, folks, we're wrapping up now. I've asked each of you to bring with you a poem or a saying, and so I'll start with you, Wayne. Go ahead.
Well, I'm gonna do my favorite. I wouldn't say it's a poem. I wouldn't say it's a statement. It's a little longer, but it's one of my favorite things, and I think it's all about entrepreneurship. And it's the Think Different campaign by Apple. When Steve Jobs came back as the second time as CEO of Apple, this was the campaign that Apple ran. And to me, this is what entrepreneurship's all about. So here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things, they invent, they imagine, they heal, they explore, they create, they inspire, they push the human race forward. While some of them see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Great, that was very appropriate. Thank you very much, Wayne. Okay, Ian, go ahead.
Yes, so we lost 2 very important people from the basketball world in the last year, certainly Kobe and David Stern. I never met David Stern or even heard him speak until Wayne interviewed him at the Innovation Conference in Philly. And just from that 40-minute conversation between David Stern and Wayne, I actually felt like I got to know the guy. And then for him to pass so soon after that, I felt like it was a personal loss. And same with Kobe. Kobe has inspired me in sports and inspired me in entrepreneurship. So I'm going to share a few words from Kobe, and I don't know if I could do it as much justice as he did, but he said, do you love the process? Those boring, agonizing moments. And if you love that, then you found something that's really true to you. You know, if you work hard, dreams come true. Those times when you're getting up early and working hard, those times when you're staying up late and working hard, those times when you don't feel like working at all because you're too tired and you don't want to push yourself, but you do anyway. And that's actually the dream. So dance beautifully in the box you're comfortable dancing in. Your box may be different than mine. Everyone has their own. It's your job to perfect it and make it as beautiful a canvas as you can make it. And if you've done that, then you have lived a successful life.
Wonderful. Thank you. Both of those were just brilliant and complemented each other perfectly well. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today for this really illuminating conversation.